Okay, here we go. The ear. The ear is all about hearing and balance. Balance is the vestibular function. We've got models of the ear up there. Let's look at this case here first. 12-year-old boy complains of difficulty hearing out of his left ear for the past 2 weeks, states that music and voices seem far away. Medical problems include allergic rhinitis. What's rhinitis?
Inflammation of the nose.
Yeah, tinnitus is ringing in here. Rhinitis. Think of a rhino. A rhinoceros is its most famous feature is the horn on its nose. Rhinitis. Think of a rhino with the nose. Rhinitis. Okay, so he's got a runny nose. Yes. On examination, he is without fever, but his left eardrum displays a yellowish discoloration. The left drum moves very little with a puff of air. Right tympanic membrane appears normal. Okay, what are we thinking here? Ear infection. Wait, what tells us it's not an ear infection yet?
There's no fever.
No fever. So it's before an ear infection. Good. Yes, that's where we want to be. It's before. Okay, what's causing it?
Probably the rhinitis.
Yes.
Allergies.
And allergies being out. Okay, great. Way to go. Yes, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. So here's what's going on. It's called a middle ear effulsion. Okay, so if we've got a person here, right? That's our person. The nose becomes inflamed, right? Rhinitis. Allergies go in. Now I've got a stuffy nose or a runny nose or something's wrong with the nose. It's inflamed. And what's connected to the nose?
Ear, throat, mouth.
The ear. Your ear, your middle ear, drains to the back of your nose. Any fluid that develops inside that middle ear drains down to the back of the nose, down the throat, and you swallow it. Wonderful, right? However, if you get inflammation of the nose, you block off the drainage point. What's that tube called? You've heard of it. I know everybody's heard of it.
It's not the trachea.
It's the eustachian. Eustachian tube. Yes, the pharyngotympanic tube, or commonly known as the eustachian tube. You've heard of the eustachian tube, right?
Something.
No.
Sounds familiar.
No, sounds familiar. When you go up in an airplane, the pressure builds and you have to pop your ears. You pop your ears through the eustachian tube. Here's the eustachian tube, auditory tube, the pharyngotympanic tube. Fluid will build up in here because these are made out of cells, and cells just excrete waste. They're just producing waste, and that waste is a fluid, and then it drains down to your nose. Well, with allergic rhinitis or congestion in the nose, it blocks off that eustachian tube. And so all the fluid doesn't have anywhere to go, so it stays. Does that make sense? Now the next step is, because this is open to the nose, there's bacteria in your nose, which means there's bacteria up in here. You provide a nice warm fluid-filled space for that bacteria, and they are going to reproduce like crazy, creating an infection. So this is the step before the infection. The infection will be there in a matter of hours now. Does that make sense? You look into have you used one of those otoscopes? Like the little tube that you look in somebody's ear? If you look in their eardrum should look milky white. It should be this really like a milky white color. And if it's not, if it's red or if it's yellowing, as in the case of this one, that means that everything back here has been infected or problematic. Is it more likely for kids or adults to have ear infections? Kids, why is that? Because they're nasty. They stick stuff in their nose. Yeah, that's part of it, yes. Also, as an adult, your ear and this eustachian tube is above your nose. And so when you're upright, it drains down into your nose following gravity. In a kid, the ear is kind of horizontal with the nose. meaning that they're on the same plane. Does it drain as well? No. Plus, babies in particular lay like this for their all day. And so how does fluid get from the ear to the nose? It can't. Does that make sense? So you got to hold them up so that they'll drain out. Eventually the kid's head will grow and everything will align, but for kids, it's more likely to have infections because of the placement of the ear. Okay, good. That brings us to the ear, and looking at the ear as an entire structure. If you were to design something like this for if you were commissioned to, hey, make a listening device, you would probably make something like an ear. This is a classic. In fact, we've done this. A satellite dish is like a listening device. This is like a satellite dish on the sides of your head, right? Or in football games, they've got that little dome thing that I'm standing on this sideline and I'm pointing at the other coach trying to listen in to what he's saying. Have you seen that? Right? They've got these little dome things and they can listen to players. They can listen to people talking, even from great distances. And it looks kind of like an ear, like a dome-shaped structure. And what this allows is for those sound waves to hit here and be funneled down into this central location. Great. So that's the ear. The outside of the ear is called the auricle or the pinna. Pinna means fin. And these are kind of like little fins, right? If my head is a fish, then these are like little fins of on the side. Auricle is a more proper term. And then external auditory meatus, you can call this EAM. It's a lot easier to spell and faster to type. This is all part of the external ear. Now there was a case, or there was an occurrence just, I guess it's been 5 or 6 years now. A lady somehow ended up with a cockroach inside her ear. Wonderful. And she was freaking out and got Q-tips and was stabbing it and killed it and couldn't get it out because she had jammed it all up in there, right? And so she had to go to the emergency room and have it extracted out. Ugh. I mean, if it's dead, that's one thing, but if it's like alive, you could hear it in there, like crick, crack, crick, all those little leg joints all, oh man.
That's so
Gross.
gross.
Okay, and then the middle ear. The middle ear, this is where we saw that effulsion, right? Here's the eustachian tube or auditory tube. This swells up and then fluid can't drain. All right, so the middle ear is boxed in. There's 4 sides to it. Laterally, we've got the tympanic membrane. Yes, it's the eardrum, but if you put eardrum, it's wrong. No eardrum. Tympanic membrane, that's what it's called, right? On the medial side, we've got the ossicles, stapes being the most medial. On the inferior side, we got the auditory tube, and the superior side is the skull. So we're boxed in. It's completely enclosed area. Speaking of these ossicles, here's what the ossicles look like. These are bones, little bones. Ossicle means little bones. So these are the 3 ossicles, the smallest bones in the body. And they are quite small. If I were to hold them up, do you see this? There's 3 of them on there. How cute. They're inside each ear. There's 3 of them, little ossicles. And their name, it's kind of nice because they kind of look like what they're named after. Again, all of these were discovered by digging up dead bodies and dissecting them. And so in the 1300s, this one kind of looked like a mallet. And so we called it malleus, right? These are all going to be found in a blacksmith shop. So you can hold on to the handle here and you hit with right there. That's like the head of the hammer. Malleus. And what are you going to hit? You're going to hit the incus. What is an incus? It's an anvil. Does it kind of look like an anvil? It comes up to a point, there's like a horn up there. I think of like Wile E. Coyote getting an anvil dropped on his head. That's incus. And then what are we working on this anvil? We're working on a stirrup or stapes. This is a stirrup like on your horse. You put your foot in there and then you step over, right? holding onto the horse with a stapes. So these 3 bones named by, again, kind of like what seems like a blacksmith here with the instruments. Now these ossicles, their job, why are they in the ear? Because they are amplifying the sound. They're amplifiers. If you play the electric guitar without it plugged in, you can hear it, but if you plug it into an amp, it becomes louder. And that's what these are. Tympanic membrane is right here. Tympanic, as soon as sound waves come in, cause vibration on the tympanic membrane. It goes from a sound wave into a vibration. Tympanic membrane vibrates and causes the malleus to vibrate, which hits on the incus at a certain frequency, which causes the stapes to plunge in and out of what's called the vestibule. And so this amplifies the sound coming into your ear. You've all heard those, like you've been in a fire alarm situation where the fire alarm's going off and it's like screaming in your ears, and you get outside and you're partially deaf. What that is there's a muscle pulling on the malleus so that it doesn't strike as hard, because there's been some loud sounds, and so to reduce that, then the muscle is called stapedius. It's attached to stapes, not malleus. It's attached to stapes, and so it pulls on the stapes so the stapes doesn't vibrate as much, meaning that the sound is all muffled, right? And we've experienced that through different things. Okay, the inca or the stapes attached to the vestibule. The vestibule is this entire thing. We've got a cochlea and semicircular canals. The cochlea is for hearing, semicircular canals is your vestibular function. So this is what it looks like, the vestibule. Kind of sounds like vegetable, but it's not a vegetable, it's a vestibule. Semicircular canals for balance, cochlea for hearing. Right? Okay, so this cochlea, well, let's wait here just a minute. We've got different layers in here. This model is seen right here, but there's other versions of it like this. You can open up this big ear model and you can see it there. So the white here on the outside is bone material. It's bone material. It's the osseous labyrinth. The gray material is a membrane. It's the membranous labyrinth. What does labyrinth mean? A maze, or a tunnel system, or like a cave system that doesn't seem like it has an ending. You go all over the place. And if we're looking at the ear and thinking like Magic School Bus, we're inside. We could travel all over the place inside of here like a maze, right? So I've got the osseous, the outside labyrinth, and I've got a membranous labyrinth on the inside. And there's different fluids in between. Between the membranous labyrinth and the osseous labyrinth, I've got this pink fluid. This pink fluid is perilymph. Deep to the gray membranous labyrinth, I've got endolymph. So on this model, I may point to one of these and say, name the fluid identified, or name the fluid inside this structure. Does that make sense? Okay, and let's look at the cochlea. These membranes continue inside the cochlea. The cochlea kind of looks like this snail shell appearance where it's all curled up, and it curls up on itself. So if we were to cut it in half, like it's separating here, if we were to cut it in half, I would see this tube with my different membranes or my different layers as it curls up, almost more like a cinnamon roll in that situation, right? All curled up. Okay, on the outside, we've got a round window and an oval window. The oval window is right here, it looks oval. The round window would be on the other side, and it looks, well, it's a round. So one is round and one is oval. And they're both windows. Okay. The oval window is where the stapes plugs in, and the stapes punches back and forth, and as it moves back and forth, it pushes that perilymph, through the cochlea. Okay, so just to back up, you hear a sound wave. That sound wave goes into your ear, hits your tympanic membrane, causes vibration. The vibration is now punching in and out on this vestibule, causing it to turn into a water wave. Okay, so now we're cycling water through the cochlea, and this cochlea is if we were to cut it in half, is divided into 3 different units. All that fluid will move through what's called the vestibular duct and then return via the tympanic duct. Okay, so let's get our bearings again. What are we even looking at here? Okay, so this is, here's the cochlea. And the cochlea has been cut in half, that snail shell. And so I see lots of versions of the same thing because this is circled around lots of times. If I were to unroll this and cut it in half just once, it would look like this. Does that make sense? So what am I seeing in there? I'm seeing 2 ducts, two open spaces inside the osseous labyrinth. And then I've got a membrane that also goes through there. Where's that membrane? Right here. So this membrane separates, out here is the osseous labyrinth, right here is the membranous labyrinth. So what kind of fluid exists between the osseous labyrinth and the membranous labyrinth? Perilymph, yes, for pink. So perilymph up here, perilymph down here, and inside the membranous labyrinth is endolymph. Do we get that? Are we starting to see it a little bit? This is the cochlea, this is inside the cochlea of the ear. A couple structures to note here. We've got, again, our duct system, vestibular duct, there's our cochlear duct, and then tympanic duct. Vestibular duct is fairly easy to see because we've got this membrane here. We don't have a membrane down here. And guess what that membrane's called? Vestibular membrane. That's nice, right? Vestibular membrane found in the vestibular duct, or separating the vestibular duct from the cochlear duct. That makes it easy, right? Hopefully. Cochlear duct, we have endolymph. We also have this spiral organ of Corti. This is where the sound wave is actually heard. So again, sound goes into your ear, vibrating in the ossicles, turns into a water wave. That water wave moves through the vestibular duct. Vestibular duct, as the water wave is pushing through, pushes down on this membrane, this vestibular membrane, creating a water wave in the cochlear duct, stimulating little stereocilia, these little hairs, and then that sends a signal down this yellow nerve. Can I see? Oh, what are these? Little fish egg appearance things. It's a type of neuron. What type of neuron is that? What classification of neuron? Bipolar. Because we're in a special sense. Bipolar neuron in the special senses, we can't really see one nerve going in, or one axon going in and one axon going in. But these are bipolar neurons of the auditory nerve going into, joining with the vestibular branch. So cochlear branch, vestibular branch joining together to form cranial nerve number.
Wait, trochlear?
Cranial nerve number 8.
80.
Vestibular cochlear. Here's the vestibular branch, here's the cochlear branch of vestibular cochlear nerve. Wonderful, right?
Okay, wait, so the what is it?
Perilymph.
Perilymph, it's not actually moving between
It is.
it is.
It's between this one and this one. So it's a closed system. I'm the stapes, and so I'm pushing back and forth into like a plunger, like in a toilet, right? Pushing it in and out according to the frequency of the sound that's coming in. And that is creating a water disturbance through the vestibular duct. So I'm pushing water at a certain frequency through the vestibular duct. That's causing this to deform at a certain frequency, which is picked up here, and my brain can hear that frequency. Now, as soon as I'm pumping water that way, it can't all just stay there. It's got to return back this way. So this is the return port. So I'm pushing it out that way, and it's returning this way. Yes? No? Can I draw something? Let's see if I can draw. Let's see if I can draw
So
something.
the green stuff is just the space.
The
The green.
yes,
So that's just the space.
that's just the space filled with the
Is
fluid.
the pink the fluid, or is the fluid not?
The pink was only seen on this model. This model is showing the pink is perilymph, and inside the gray is the endolymph. We don't see that pink on here. There's no pink on here. This is perilymph, this is perilymph, this is endolymph. So if I pump stuff, I've got this system that let's see if I can do this. I can do this, I know I can do this. I can do this. Let's just go this way. Okay, so this area, this is my my vestibular membrane. Okay, so I'm going to use a plunger. It's kind of like a plunger. And I'm going to plunge back and forth, pushing water this way. And as I push water this way, it's going to deform this membrane, creating a disturbance. Now that fluid is going to cycle through and it's going to come back this tube. And it's going to come back to the beginning and then it'll be cycled through again. So the perilymph is cycled through circularly. The endolymph, which is inside, I've got these nerve fibers in here, and they're picking up on where that vestibular membrane is deforming. Does that make sense?
Is this where vertigo would happen?
We're gonna get to that. It's not, but we're gonna get to it. This is just hearing. Just hearing. And so the farther you go in the cochlea, the more low pitch the sound. Right? Lower pitches will carry farther. Higher pitches carry less far. And so if you hear a voice or if you hear a sound and it's a high pitch, then it's going to be closer here. If you hear it lower pitch, it's going to move on. Right? If you're working in a machine shop or somewhere where there's a constant sound, that means that those hairs, those stereocilia, get innervated so much that they may actually break off. Or if you're near a loudspeaker or something, it may break some of those stereocilia, in which case you won't hear at that frequency. That's interesting. That's interesting. You can not hear at certain frequencies. I've been told, I don't want to say it, never mind. Okay, here's what the ear looks like in the microscope. Can you see it? This is exactly what we were looking at. It's the same, right? I can only see this portion of the tympanic membrane down here. But up here, this is vestibular membrane. Over here, cochlear membrane. Up here, vestibular membrane. Vestibular duct, tympanic duct, cochlear duct, I think it's called membrane, right? Can I see the organ of Corti? Sure. See the organ of Corti right here. I can see the tectoral membrane, the basilar plate right here. Can I see the bipolar neurons? Yes. There are all of these guys in through here. Nope, down here. These are my bipolar neurons that we can see. Okay, so this may show up on the quiz in the microscope. Okay, so we're good with that. Sound wave pathways, this just takes it again as I was talking about it. Now it takes it a little bit further. It goes through the vestibulocochlear nerve, and it will eventually get to what lobe of the brain? What one? Temporal, right? Because that's the one that deals with hearing or sound or understanding. Okay, so that was all about hearing. The cochlea end is all about hearing. The semicircular end is all about balance, vestibular function, where you are in space. You know, we've got a phone. If you hold it upright, the screen will be upright. If you turn it on its side, it will shift. There's a gyroscope in the phone that changes the direction of the screen. We have a gyroscope right here inside of us. If I move the head as if I'm saying yes, fluid, endolymph, runs through this anterior semicircular canal, and it tells my brain I'm moving my head like this. If I move my head this way, side to side as if to say no, the fluid in the lateral semicircular canal moves and tells my brain I'm moving. If I touch my ear to my shoulder, I'm moving fluid through the posterior semicircular canal. Can I see that? We okay with that? Know those. On the quiz, or even on the practical, I'll point here and say what direction of head movement is picked up by this semicircular canal, or this, or that. So anterior is up and down like yes and no. I mean, like yes. Lateral is no, and posterior is ear to shoulder. Now, those aren't the only motions that we do. We can do all kinds of motions or moving our head. And so we get a combination of those. Inside of these semicircular canals, we have an ampulla. An ampulla is an enlarged part of the tube, and there's just one ampulla on each of these semicircular canals. I can see the ampulla here, I can see the ampulla here, and on the posterior, it's right here. Posterior semicircular canal on the back side. Posterior ampulla. Inside the ampulla is where I have a cochlea, which kind of looks like an organ of Corti. Fluid runs through here, and if I turn my head to the side, it causes that fluid to move quickly. And so that fluid moves quickly, deforming the cochlea, which is like little stereocilia. I think of it almost like seaweed in a river. Seaweed being pushed by the fluid stimulates the nerve. What nerve? The vestibular nerve. Right? Vestibular nerve, because I'm doing part of balance. And so this tells my brain, oh, I look to the right. Oh, I look to the left. Right? And I can maintain my balance even while moving. This can be messed with a little bit, changed a little bit, because my senses can give me, let's say, different readings. If I spin like this, and then I stop, what's the sensation that I feel? Why? Okay? Yes. Let's think about it. The eyes, I'm spinning around, the eyes, and then I stop. My eyes tell my brain, we're holding still. And my brain, the fluid's still moving in my ears, and my ears are saying to my brain, no, we're not. We're still moving. Right? And the brain's like, I'm confused. Let's fall down. And that's what we do. Right? If you're really dizzy, your eyes and your ears are telling you different things. You could close your eyes and maybe your balance will be better, right? Because now you're not sending you're still sending conflicting information, but it's not with your eyes. This is what happens with vertigo, is as 35, as we age, little crusties start to break free, or little crystals of salt start to form inside these semicircular canals. And if one of those little salt crystals lands right here, it's going to trigger this cochlea saying to the brain, oh, we're moving. And the eyes are saying, no, we're not. And you go on the ground. Right? And that won't release until that salt crystal gets off. You'll be in this dizzy attack. And sometimes they can last minutes, like even 15 minutes. And it's got to be frightening, right? Because in your mind, we talked about this with the brain, right? What you feel in your mind is what really is happening. Okay? Again, you go back to the idea. Somebody's rubbing your shoulders. Your feeling on that is real. And it's all in the mind. So if your head is spinning because a salt crystal landed on here, you fall down on the floor, and what are you trying to do? You're trying to grab onto something because you're moving. You're trying to grab onto something to stabilize yourself, right? Because you're really moved now, and you're not really moving, but in your brain, it's very real. So that's vertigo. That's one of the forms of vertigo. There's lots of different forms of vertigo, but that's the most common one. Bad news. Oh, that's nice. Okay, so semicircular canals. These are dynamic equilibrium. Dynamic meaning I can move and stay balanced. The utricle and saccule are involved with static equilibrium. Static equilibrium means that I hold, my body is still and I can remain balanced. What do you mean you hold still and remain balanced? It's kind of the same thing, isn't it? Not necessarily. It's a sensation. If you're in a car and you close your eyes, you can feel when they accelerate, and you're not driving, right? You can feel when they accelerate or when they brake. There's a sensation, right? You feel that movement. Or better yet, you go into the elevator. Into the elevator, you want to go down, but the elevator is going up to the 3rd floor. You push the down button and you get in and you start going up and you're like, wait a minute. You feel it. It's like, I should be feeling something different. I should be going down. Can you identify with that? Can you feel in the elevator when it's moving up and down? That's this. That's saccule and utricle, not the semicircular canal. Semicircular canals are when you are moving. Utricle and saccule are when you are not moving, when something you're in is moving. And you can still maintain balance. And not just maintain balance, but maintain your body. Because if the elevator went up and you were expecting it to go down and this was not functioning, it's like now you're sending confusing signals to your brain and you're going to be on the floor. Saccule, utricle. And you can think utricle with a U is the upper one. It's the one above the saccule. Okay, and that's the overview of the balance with the different chambers. Again, the orange being the membranous labyrinth with our different ampulla here, utricle and saccule. Here's the cochlea, again showing, or for hearing. Know these two different branches. If I'm looking at this one, I see coming from the cochlea, the cochlear branch, or the auditory branch. And then coming from the other side is the vestibular branch of the vestibular cochlear nerve. And that is the ear. There's a question. We don't need the question. We don't need the question. Okay. Did I get out the? I didn't get out the notebooks. I'm sorry. I got notebooks. Okay, so go through these notebooks. We've got plenty of time. Note that we do have the practical next week. Next week. It's in 9 days from today. It's next Wednesday is our practical. And it will be over the nerve, the neuron, the spinal nerves, the spinal cord, the brain, and then all the special senses, which is way too much information for one practical. That's what we're doing.